reflective moment behind this hardened face. This tree shelters me from the driving rain. Everything I've searched for and every question left unanswered lie scattered round its base. Over the noise I try to remember, but it's hard to hear. This place is busier now, the world's moved on 16 years. But if I listen hard above this soundtrack to our lives, a brass band plays the last dance. I'm still searching through it all. I still hear your call. I know there's nothing left here for me, just a sense of my own mortality. In this garden now, familiar senses I recognize from days gone by. But this feeling of change, like the last days of summer, I carry with me now. I'm still searching through it all, and I still hear your call. There's nothing left here now for me, just this reminder of my own mortality. There's so much emotion at times like these. How are we supposed to see when all that's left is just a fading memory? Ashes scattered to the mercy of the fall wind.
And that was Four Winds by Mark Ayling. My name is Thomas Sheridan. This is The Velocity of Now, and welcome back to the second hour. The Velocity of Now is exclusively on the Type 1 radio network, and I want to thank Steve for producing the show and all the people at Type 1 network for giving me the opportunity to put this platform out there and get my views and my insights and even my gobshitery at times out there. It doesn't matter. What you see is what you get. My website is thomassheridanarts.com. You'll find hundreds of pages of information, links to hundreds of hours of video, including free movies with me, myself, and Mark Higginbotham, financed out of our own pocket and gave away for free. And if you want to help, there's a donate button there. It really would help me, because I really want to get this show to be as big as possible. I want to get this show out there, and I want to get as many people interested, because I have big plans for the future, because I want this show to ultimately be a positive rebuttal to the mainstream media, along with the other more progressive and less fear porn inclined radio shows that are out there. So if you could throw me a few bucks, that would be great. It really helps. I know the truth should be free, but administration, hard work, years of research, and resources are most certainly not free. So anything you could do to help me there would be brilliant, no matter how small. And thank you to the people who contributed already. By the way, the college professor's name is Camelia Paglia, who's made that statement that Hal was being raped by Dave. I'll try and get the audio from that deep special DVD and play it on the show next week. It really is a remarkable insight into just the idiots that this world, we're under the yoke of. Sheer educated idiocy, completely missing the point, using it to spin their little agendas so they don't have the rest of us open our eyes and see what is really going on with this world. Speaking of what is really going on with this world and agendas and Italians, a friend of mine in Italy brought my attention this week on Facebook before my account was destroyed, of videos, numerous videos as a matter of fact, on YouTube, which defy natural selection. Now, I'm not getting into the debate between creationism and Darwinism. I think there's actually an element of both, a crossover of both those ideas at work, but I'm not going to get into that debate. I won't be pulled in. But I will be pulled into the debate about natural selection, because we all know the elites, they love natural selection. Oh, it just turns them on so much. The idea of kill or be killed, survival of the fittest. And this friend of mine in Italy pointed me in the direction of these remarkable videos that you'd never see Mr. Attenborough on the BBC show, that show not only that our animals far more intelligent, cognitive, and emotionally driven than what than we were ever told, but also very often the predators get the shit kicked out of them by their targets. There is some very touching and amazing footage of a lion chasing a baby zebra, and the zebra's mother literally chasing after the lion and beating the hell out of it in a river. There's other videos of wildebeest doing the same. Is far more common than what we're told, because the elites are obsessed with us doing this whole natural selection thing. We're here to be killed by the psychopaths. We're here to be ruled by them, because we are lesser species. We do not live in a palace. We are not inbred aristocrats. Therefore, we are lower in the food chain. And we're going to show this to you by putting constant documentaries on TV that show poor baby wildebeest and sick zebras and other gazelles and animals like that being killed by the noble lion, the noble tiger. Well, I sat there and I watched these videos, and then I started watching videos about tigers. And I've come to the conclusion that far from being a noble beast, a regal beast, lions are the vermin of the Serengeti. Lions are the vermin of the Kalahari. Lions are not a superior animal. It doesn't matter how much the royal families love to adorn their regalia in lions by putting crowns on their head and talking about the Lion King. We even got that with the new royal baby. Lions are far lower on the evolutionary scale than many of the animals they hunt. It's just because we have this Darwinian survival of the fittest, kill or be killed propaganda, where the big bad animals with the claws and teeth eat the lesser animals who can't fight back. This is not always the case. In fact, the lions, when they go out into a field of wildebeest to go and try and kill an elderly, sick or young one, are in just as much danger of the wildebeest killing them as the one of the wildebeest being eaten by the lion. Now, so you have the lion, they always have the male lion with his big, he sits there. So he's basically the pimp of the Serengeti. He sits there like the pimp daddy, right? And he has all his bitches, all the lionesses, who do all the hunting and raise the kids. This noble creature, right? And then if he moves in on another female lioness, what does he do? He kills all her cubs because he only wants his seed to be the one that impregnates her. So all the other baby lions are all killed. And then he sits back, and maybe now and again he might, take part in a hunt for a bit of sport, like King Carlos of Spain when he, killing elephants, or the Saxe-Gotha, Prince Philip and Queen Elizabeth killing animals in Africa, the World Wildlife Fund, the climate change people, the ones who tell us to live with less stuff, leaving their palaces and their palatial mansions and their castles every so often to go kill for sport an animal in Africa or animals in India or Africa. Well, the lion is the same way. The male lion, he might get out there with the lionesses now and again and kill the odd baby zebra to make him feel like a tough predator. And that really appeals to the royals. They love the lion. The lion, king of the jungle, king of Africa. Just like I'm king of England or king of Spain. I'm a lion of the human race. My subjects are my quarry. Meanwhile, he has all his servants who do everything for him, from wiping his ass to making his dinner. So these videos, after watching them, and I have to say I became very emotional during watching many of them, to see how the complexity of these animals' cognitive functioning, in terms of, you can see the look on this female zebra saying, you are not fucking getting my child. You are not going to get my child. And the look of desperation is in the lion's face, the lioness's face. It's not in the zebra's face. The zebra has a look of absolute determination, a fully cognitive awareness that you, lion, is not going to kill the baby. Because that's what lions do. That's what tigers do. They go for the young, the sick, and the elderly. Because then again, that's a beautiful thing to the elites, to the psychopathic elite. Euthanization, abortion, and right to death. Pull the fucking plug. Just kill them. That's how they think. Sorry for my language, but this is the effect these people have on me. We're nothing. Cull the herd. Send them off to war. Send them off to the Somme, like Kate Middleton's great uncle did when he was in head of the British Army, the commoner, the so-called commoner. Send them off to war. Send them off to be slaughtered. We are the noble lions. We are the elite. No, you're not. You're a parasite sitting in a palace, just like the lions are the parasites sitting in Africa. We have been conditioned to believe these are superior creatures. We don't have to accept this conditioning anymore. We do not have to think that natural selection is a secular version of God's plan for the universe. We don't have to accept it anymore. I would encourage, in fact, I would implore people to go onto YouTube and look for these videos. There are dozens and dozens of them. And you can see that the predators are not winning. They're actually being beaten up by these so-called lesser species, or lesser races, as Darwin called them. It's the most amazing thing. And that's part of our waking up and deprogramming agenda, is that we have to understand that a lot of the stuff they teach us is bullshit. In fact, there might even be a lot of evidence to show that the lower an organism is, the more powerful it is. For instance, a virus or a bacteria in the brain of a human being can get a human being to do the most incredible things, can actually control the human being. Who is the boss then? The human being or the very simple, uncomplex, invertebrate fluke that's inside the brain of the human? Who's calling the shots there? It works both ways, just like time is not linear. The circle of life is not a circle. It's an explosion that goes off in all directions, because evolution is not a linear process. It's an explosive, dynamic, complex, three-dimensional flux in creation of novelty. There is not a linear timeline. There is an unfolding. A flower doesn't open one petal at a time. A flower opens all the petals together. Thus, evolution works the same way. They want us believing that something has to happen, and then something else has to happen, and then there's a trigger emotion. But yet, they cannot show many fossils that have a consecutive intermediary. They just can't. The missing links are completely missing all over. Mr. Attenborough again, a few years ago, someone had basically found a fairground freak show attraction that was supposed to be the missing link. It was a fraudulent fossil. And there was Attenborough on TV worshipping Darwin. Oh, it's the proof of natural selection, and and it was a fairground freak show fossil. And yet he was not held accountable for that, because any chance for him to get on TV and push the elites' natural selection is what his job is, because again, they believe they've been naturally selected to rule over the rest of us. They haven't been. It's been unnatural selection. Unnatural selection by fraud, default, murder, manipulation. That's how a psychopath gains power. Not by being fair and square, by running smear campaigns, by trashing the people that they see as being in their way, by playing others off against each other. Deviousness. That's how the psychopath gets in power, with long-term agendas and plans. They're the ones who are prisoners to linear thinking. They're the ones who are shackled to the circle of life, as they call it. The rest of us are not. We are dynamically evolving organisms, conscious beings in an explosive, unattainable in terms of understanding universe. And we play a much larger role in the unfoldment of this reality than their random mutations tell us we are. Epigenetics is now showing that with every thought you have, there's a neurological and even in many cases a physiological cause and effect. I believe that many illnesses are caused by stinking thinking. There's been numerous cases of people who didn't have cancer because they didn't know they had cancer. And then they went for their mammogram or their biopsy for a little mole on their finger. And they were perfectly healthy before that. And then they were told they had the big C. And within 6 months they were dead. Would they have survived if they didn't know? I don't know. But I'll tell you one thing. They weren't dying when they didn't know they had it. And speaking of the elites and their silliness, I came across a book recently this week about how they used to, before the discovery of the XY chromosome in 1902, the aristocrats used to tie a ligature around their left testicle because they believed the left testicle was filled with women children, and the right testicle was filled with men. So they would actually tie a piece of elastic band or a piece of string or something really tight around their left testicle. Probably explains Prince Philip's funny walk. And that was to produce only male children. Almost like a dam So the son and heirs and the few spares, the ones that weren't going to be killed in wars or, whatever, duels, could shoot down his Willie and then impregnate, Lady Penelope. This is what these people are like. That was to ensure it was a male issue, the regent's issue. And there was a book by Mrs. Ida Ellis called The Essentials of Conception. And it sat right on the locker, the bedside table, next to Darwin's Origin of Species. And they would sit there and go, oh, Lady Penelope, may I have the pleasure of restricting the effectiveness of my right testicle, so you may sire the future Lord Snot. There's pillow talk for you. There was a story in the Daily Mail a few years ago about how the British elites used to eat human flesh to cure impotence. One of the biggest exports from Ireland to England in the 1700s was human skulls. Human skulls were dug up. Two things were done with them. The skull cap around the cranium was turned into a wine goblet used in Freemasonic ceremonies, and also it was a very fashionable, trendy thing for aristocrats to have a wine goblet fashioned from the skull of a human being. And secondary, the skulls were then powdered up and consumed as foods, along with dried flesh. They used to eat dried lungs, kidneys, even sexual organs of dead people, to cure numerous ailments, because these were the men of the enlightenment, of reason. The scientific method, 300 years ago, for, curing impotence wasn't Viagra, it was a powdered skull of an Irish person. And if you were to say that was a load of bullshit back then, you would be deemed a moronic conspiracy theorist. We're ruled by nut jobs, in case you haven't figured it out. Absolute batshit crazy nut jobs. But they're psychopathic nut jobs. And that's why we are at an extreme disadvantage, because they're so devious. They're so devious, and they lack any kind of compassion. They lack any kind of compassion. And then they try to destroy or restrict our emotional intelligence to keep us emotionally retarded. So we're more concerned about celebrities than we are about our neighbours. You saw that, and we're very much to be made more empathic with the royals than even our own children and our own families. And you saw that in England last week with that bizarre circus, where people were literally in convulsions, screaming in the streets for the birth of someone who, when he grows up, will never have to work a day in his life, worry about hospital cutbacks. And by all accounts, although let's give the child a chance to grow up, but by all accounts, will probably end up like Prince Charles, sitting inside his palace, telling the rest of the world, you have to make do with less stuff. Lunatics who cannot see their own absurdity because it have created a reality for themselves that they think is normal. And they try to impose that absurd, hypocritical reality upon the rest of us. So don't believe that in nature it's all murderous and killing. I think it was Tennessee Williams who was paraphrasing. No, it was Al Gore who paraphrased Tennessee Williams when he mentioned when they saw the baby turtles coming up out of the sand and the gulls swooping down and killing the turtles. Was it man's business to go over there and rescue the turtles from the gulls, the baby turtles from the gulls? Or were we to allow evolution to happen, to let nature take its course and have most of the baby turtles eaten right after they've seen their first daylight, their first sunshine, as they run towards the ocean? And my attitude and my answer to that is, the most evolutionary act you could do would be standing on that beach with a baseball bat and swipe at the gulls as they try to swoop down on the baby turtles. Pick the baby turtles up and bring them to the water. That is true evolution, not allowing them to be slaughtered so the fittest ones make it. That is a mythology. Does Prince Charles look anything to you like what you'd imagine Alexander the Great looked like? His ancestor. So much for their own natural selection. And that is human compassion. That is human evolution. And those videos I saw of those animals this week, that really brought that home to me. There's even a photograph I saw on Facebook before my account was hacked where it showed bunches of kids forming a line on either side of the turtles as they run towards the sea to protect them from the gulls. And there was all these obnoxious quotes by, pseudo-skeptics and atheists saying, these children are evil. They're making sure diseased and baby turtles are going into the sea. And this will ultimately destroy the turtle stock. And my attitude is when you hear something like that is you don't care. Because if it feels right in your heart, it is right. And your instinct when you see baby turtles being attacked by gulls or baby zebras being attacked by vermin lions is that you want to protect that baby zebra or that baby turtle. That is not an irrational, emotional, hysterical response. That is a deliberate evolutionary in all. When I say evolutionary, I talk about all ways. Because they want us to be so cold and so hierarchical that it, just like in the beginning of the novel A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens, where the poor Parisian child is run over and killed by the carriage of the aristocrat, and it doesn't mean anything because it's just a peasant child. They want us like that. Evolution has strongly pushed us towards social justice and equality in terms of how people are given the life and the right to live, and they're doing everything now to take that from us. They want to abort as many babies as possible. They want to kill as many old people before they grow old, and they want to encourage people who may not even have debilitating diseases to end their lives. It's the same thing as when that carriage went down the street and ran over the child in the beginning of The Tale of Two Cities. And I think as human beings, we've actually managed to do that. We now have social justice. We now have people we've fought very hard against the psychopaths to get to this point. And I believe the next thing is to start doing it the animal world that way. And in the second half of the show, I'm going to talk about something I'm going to do in my own life that's going to become what for me will be a personal journey of my own. In terms of dealing with a shift in my own consciousness, because I feel now that I'm at the point in my life where I'm ready to try something quite different. And so hopefully you can be a part of this experiment too. And I'll talk about this in the second half after we play the final song of the evening, which is Morning Chorus by Quiet Noise with Karen Sawyer. And that was The Morning Chorus by Quiet Nights with Karen Sawyer. Last week on the show, we had a bit of a comedy bit where I pretended to channel the god Ra. And that Ra's advice to me was go on a diet, you fat bastard. When I asked him how would I attain a light body. It was funny, but it was also insightful because that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to spend the next month, because I have no commitments, I have no travel or speaking commitments during the month of August 2013. I'm going to try and destroy myself. Destroy myself in the true meaning of the word. I've decided that because I'm working on a book that will deal with the close association between what they call spiritual awakening, the shamanic experience, and what's being tagged as mental illness, I don't like to write about things I haven't experienced myself. I'll be interviewing and talking, collaborating with people who've gone through it, but when my other books, Puzzling People and Defeat the Demons and The Anvil of the Psyche, they were a case of I had been affected badly in my life by a couple of psychopathic individuals, and it nearly killed me. Psychologically, it almost killed me. So that's why when people say, you write your books with too much passion and emotion, I say, thank you for that compliment, because they're written from the heart. So in order to not be one of these patronizing type authors who sit back and just use other people's experiences, I've decided that I'm going to go on a journey, but not a journey in the geographic sense, but a journey in the consciousness sense. I'm going to push myself to limits I haven't been to before in order to reach an alternative state of consciousness in the next month. How it'll pan out, I might give up, I might flop, I might have some kind of remarkable revelations, but I'm going to share it all with everybody through my blog every day. I've just had my dinner before the show came on. It was a curry, and I'm now drinking a cup of coffee, and this will be the last thing I will do that won't involve water for a week. I'm going to firstly go on a week fast. I'm not going to eat anything for the next 7 days until this show is off the air next week, unless I get really sick or something happens, or I'm not strong enough and it breaks me. But I want to go on a hunger strike to protest myself, and I want to do that over the next 7 days. I'll just be living off fluoridated water. I want to clean out my body completely of all the toxins and all the poisons. I want to free up that energy again, but I also want to do it in order to attain an altered state of consciousness. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try and trigger a shamanic experience through fasting. Now, it's happened to other people I know, and it's a risky strategy. People I've spoken to said two things happen. You can have, after 3 or 4 days, a sudden euphoria, and then you crash into the darkest depression you've ever had. And I want to try and do that. I want to take myself to the limits in a psychological and emotional sense, if I can do it. And fasting seems to be the best way for me to do it in the first week of August 2013. I don't know where this idea came from to do this, but I have been reading about shamanic experiences and the history of shamanism and similar kinds of ideas from around the world. And there's a constant thing is sacrifice. You cannot go on a weekend course in Glastonbury or Sedona and become a shaman. You just can't. It doesn't work like that. This takes work. Everything that's worth anything, or anything that's real in this life, involves struggle. Nothing comes for free and nothing comes for easy. Falling in love is always followed by heartbreak in many cases. Having a child involves great pain. It's the same thing with your own shift in consciousness. You're not going to get it for free. You're not going to go on a weekend workshop or a Saturday afternoon shamanism power workshop and become a shaman. It doesn't work like that. I'm not looking to become a shaman. I'm just trying to understand and feel what it feels like for people who've been taken to these extremes, and that's what I'm interested in doing here. I also have other things planned. I'm going to actually try and physically bring myself to the point of endurance. I won't be stupid. I'm not going to do anything stupid. But I'm going to spend, I showed some pictures of a house, a haunted house near where I live, that's been the center of what they call satanic and demonic activity. If I can manage it, I'm going to spend the night alone in that house, because I want to confront the demons. Even if they're not real, I want to go and experience the depths and the darkness. There's also another haunted house I have access to if I can't get in there, where poltergeist stuff has been experienced. I'll be recording, logging this, and updating it every day as it happens for the next month. Or every day if I can manage it, something interesting. I'll also be keeping a dream journal. We'll be making very complex notes, if possible, of any dreams I have. I'm hoping to actually trigger more powerful dream experiences by releasing more DMT in my pineal gland through the fasting, through this experiment. Another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to begin a painting tonight, and the painting will evolve during the month. It'll be on, I don't know, I haven't decided what kind of size canvas it's using. I might use a large piece of board, but I'm going to try and add to the painting every day to see how it affects with my emotional and psychological state as this experiment progresses. And I'll give you updates on that on thomassheridanarts.com on if you click the blog link. I've been very fortunate in my life that just about everything I've put my hand to has kind of worked out to me. People say I'm very talented. I'm a really good guitar player, but that guitar playing, I actually learned how to play that. I didn't learn it by reading chord books. I used to go see bands play when I was a young teenager and say, what was that chord? How do you do that? And then I would watch bands play, and I learned how bar chords work by watching punk and metal bands when I was 14 and 15. Same thing with art. I have a very arbitrary, unorthodox approach to learning things. I get the basic idea, and then I go off and I do my own thing. It's just how I've always been, and it's always worked out for me. Same as a writer, same as everything else. I'm not a talented person. I've actually worked at getting this. I think no one is more talented than anyone else. I think that we all have the ability to do these things inside us, but if you approach them from the heart, they work out. When people say, oh, I tried to do this or I tried to do that, it really didn't happen because they weren't following their heart. They were probably following their ego, or they were probably trying to impress themselves. Well, I've only followed my heart as much as possible. Now, it's also led me to some stupid situations and, terrible mistakes I've made in my life. But, that's just part of the experience as well. Following your heart is a double-edged sword. It can lead you to magical places, but it can also allow people to prey on you. And so this is what my heart is telling me right now, to fast and to torture myself, literally. I'm going to try and climb the mountains around here as much as I can, sleep outdoors on the feet in the grass. I'm also going to get up very early in the morning. I'm going to continue to monitor dream diaries, and I'm going to have as little contact online as possible, so I won't be online that much. Other than updating the blog posts when I can, I'm going to try and spend some time being absolutely silent. That's why I'll be spending a lot of time in the countryside. I want to see what it's like to be an indigenous human being. I want to see what it's like to be a savage. I want to see what it's like to doubt myself in the extreme. Because I cannot write this book unless I go there, and I have to go there. I have to see what that's like. So that's going to begin this week with the fasting. And again, I might turn out to be a pussy, and I don't have the balls or whatever to carry it through, or the determination, and it's not right for me. We'll see. We'll see how it works out. But one of the reasons I want to do it in a public sense is because it also will help me to sort of police myself in that way. If I was doing it alone or at home or out of public sight and mind, it would be very easy for me to go off the wagon in a consciousness sense. This way I'm disciplining myself, because we're all human beings and we're all filled with insecurities, desires, anxieties and neuroses, all of us. And sometimes I'm a firm believer in that you cannot live alone and think, the path of the hermit is really only the path for the wise man. The hermit is a wise man. The hermit didn't become a hermit because he was in a bad way or things weren't working out. He became a hermit to go in and to explore into that sense. But he wasn't able to go there until he had attained knowledge, until he had attained wisdom. Then you go on the hermetic journey. Then you go on the way of the hermit. But people who go on to the way of the hermit who are not, shall we say, consciously enlightened or aware, are really going to go bonkers, and they'll be running back to the pub in no time. I'm not that strong and I'm not that wise, so that's one of the reasons I'm going to do this. So it should be a very interesting experiment. It should be, we'll see if I have a shift in sort of behavioral consciousness, cognitive consciousness this time next week. But I'm ultimately here, I'm seeking wisdom and I'm seeking enlightenment. And I'm going into the dark night of the soul as much as possible in order to find that twinkling star on the horizon, or the silver shaft of morning rising above the horizon, that will give me the insight I need to work on this next project. It doesn't mean I'm going to become a bore. It doesn't mean I'm going to become Mr. sort of self-righteous and Mr. Spiritual, one of these love and light motherfuckers. I'm not going to become one of them. I'm still going to be the same person, but I want to have a deeper understanding of what people who go through these shamanic shifts, these consciousness awarenesses, these explosions of understanding that opens up the world towards them, and all of a sudden they think they're going nuts, because that's what happens. They think they're going mad, and then they go to the psychiatrist or the doctor, and they say, look, I think I'm going bonkers, and the doctor's going, oh, you are, here's some drugs. I was talking to someone who's a top person in the Irish mental health professional during the week, and they told me the same thing, that they're looking for more people to explain this whole spiritual thing without them being new age, because often these counselors and therapists do not themselves know how to handle it. They don't want someone you could have someone who walks in there and he's he's a banker, or he's an advertising executive, or he's an engineer, or somebody who just works, for the council, walks in and says, I suddenly feel at one with everything and the universe, and it's just all magical. I think I'm going insane. That's how sick and twisted our world is. Instead of celebrating that, or having the new shamans who would guide those people to safety, to help them on their journey. We don't have the shamans anymore. We have the psychotherapist and we have the psych meds. We don't have someone to hold their hand and guide them through it and say, it's going to be okay, we're going to get through it. Don't worry about it. This is a good thing. This is you're a seed, and the fertilizer and the water has landed on you, and now you're growing into a flower. You're going from, a pupa into a butterfly. You're emerging. And that's why my work and my books are always about solutions. They're always about getting out of this mess. With the psychopaths, I said, just get away from them, have nothing to do with them ever again, and try to embrace decent people in your life and try to be creative and make yourself a new reality. And it's the same thing. I do believe that the time is right in the world for some kind of process like this, where more and more people, for whatever reason, I don't know, there definitely seems to be some kind of changes in the planet. But there definitely is something happening. And we're going to have, in the next few years, an explosion of people who are going to think that they're insane. They're going to think that they're nuts, and their families are going to think they're insane and they're nuts, and that's where the real problem comes in. Because what happens is the husband leaves the wife, who has this explosion, this Maslow's, peak experience. Maslow's peak experience where suddenly the world and everything in it has perfect meaning, and he thinks his wife has gone bonkers. Same thing that can happen the other side around. The man or the family, they think their child is going nuts. Or the original parent, the father's going nuts. We need the toolkits to help people get through this, both the spiritual awakening and the political awakening, because it's coming now. It's coming big time. We are on the cusp of an evolutionary moment, an evolutionary change that we're very fortunate to see. We are so fortunate to be born at this time. There are some groups like the Mayans who actually believe that we've all chosen to be born at this time, to see these changes. What an amazing thought that is. That we've actually, some part of our cognitive awareness. I don't buy into a reincarnation because one of the reasons is because time is not linear, so why would you have past lives? You would have lives in the future, lives in the past, if that was the case. I just think that the consciousness chooses to jump in when the time is ready. Very similar to what the Cathars believed. Before you took the consolamentum and decided to become a pure spirit being, you would be reborn in different forms in order to understand and have compassion for poor people, for rich people. So you would have a full understanding of the human condition. And then when you were ready to attain a pure spiritual state, you would spend your last year, probably your last lifestyle as a perfect, not being a vegetarian, preparing yourself to become pure spirit. And you would go on the consolamentum on your deathbed, which meant that you gave up all your chances of ever being on earth in a bodily form in order to become just pure spirit. And the perfects would coach the elderly people or the sick people that wanted the consolamentum, and they would say things like, well, there'll be no more beer and girls and dancing and laughing when you become pure spirit, to make sure that they were ready to go. The perfects were very similar to what we would call shaman. And of course the Inquisition wiped them all out. They wiped everything out like that. And I think time has now come to bring back that, to bring back the savages, to bring back the indigenous hordes. Once their hearts are good and once they're not infected by some kind of pathological virus, whether it be spiritual or literal in a biological sense, I think we're now ready for this moment, and I want to be ready for it too. So if you want to take part or do something similar, I wouldn't suggest following what I'm doing precisely, but just, if you have an interest in doing something similar, make out a plan for yourself. Remember, don't follow me. Always be an individual. Never follow anyone else's process. Do it yourself. Come up, think about it. Ask yourself the question internally. And if it's the right answer, if you get really good at this, you will feel a faint sensation inside your body telling you that that's the right answer. This is what they call the good feeling. This is what they call the good feeling. So just ask yourself, if you want to do something like this yourself in your own life, you say, well, I give up drinking. And you just ask yourself, and you might be told, no, don't give up drinking because, you actually have a lot of fun when you have a few beers on you. See, don't buy into the thing that you have to be pure and perfect. You can be pure and perfect in many ways, not just physically. Or you may say, should I give up meat and become a vegetarian? Well, ask yourself. Don't just do it because some celebrity or guru or someone on the radio or a gobshite like me is doing it. Just do it yourself. Come up with your own plan, because I think one of the biggest problems we have and one of the causes of human suffering, particularly in the West, is this adherence to methods. When people go on diets, they have to follow the Atkins plans or the paleo diet plan or the Hollywood H-bomb diet or the Jane Fonda plan or some other celebrity plan. And this causes anxiety. Oh, I didn't do this today. Oh, I skipped this many calories. Oh, I had a piece of chocolate. I screwed everything up. See, this is the neuroses is put in there. But if you ask yourself, is this the right thing? Is this the decision I will make? It's like when you recall dreams. The more you recall dreams, what happens is the cognitive processes in your brain actually create a situation where you get better at remembering your dreams. You become like a dream master. It's the same thing with this process where you ask your gut feeling, is this the right thing? You ask your heart, is this the right thing to do? Remember, the heart has a brain inside it. The The heart has actually brain cells right inside it as a neural pathway inside it, and I'm not sure what it does. But I think that's where the intuition and where you're bonding and all that. And this kind of the sense of connectedness to everyone comes from that. That's why you have your heart is broken when you've been gone through at the end of a relationship and your heart is broken. You've literally lost your connection to somebody in a close kind of way. Again, they've damaged us emotionally by making our emotional intelligence very weak. Sappy love songs, Hallmark moments, romance films. They make people fall in love very easily. And you have very silly things like people falling in love with complete strangers on the internet, and all they see is a photograph of them on Facebook. And some people will do things like go run away and marry these people that they don't even know. All they know is the fantasy on Facebook. And that's because there's an emotion. We've been conditioned to have a sense of emotional retardation, where we trust the superficial emotions of the dopamine and the serotonin, but we don't follow or adhere to or watch or monitor the true deep emotions from the lower poles of cognitive functioning that come through our gut feeling, the sensations we feel in our heart, or the sense of knowing that this is the right thing to do, this feels good, the following of one's intuition. We've lost those deeper, more profound insights into our own relationship with the five sense reality inside this manufactured consensual universe, and replaced it with the Hallmark moment. This is what psychopaths want. They want people falling in love on a very superficial level. They want people falling for religion in a very superficial level. That's why so many psychopaths become pastors and preachers in these sort of like revivalist churches. And so many become New Age gurus because they want that superficial. They want you following that superficial state of spiritual enlightenment. They don't want you going for the deepest things, because if you really realize that the deepest one of all is precisely what Jesus Christ said, the kingdom of heaven is within. That is just so true. Everything else in terms of like all the Vedic mysteries and all the other parables and stories are telling us that too as well. If you read them properly and not read them in a left-brained literal way, you understand them in the true mythological sense of what they actually are. They're tools to guide us in an archetypal sense through our subconscious and conscious minds on a journey together to become more complete in this world. And that's when you realize that you don't feed pathological systems and you don't stick to tried and trusted methods, because they create anxieties and neuroses, and they make for an unhappy life where you do not reach your creative potential. This is why, essentially, in terms of my own beliefs, I'm an anarchist. I think that if the world was just left alone and we were ignoring the psychopaths, had nothing to do with them, that everything would work out okay eventually. Yes, there would be an initial period of change and flux that would be traumatic, but I think eventually decency would shine through and we'd all start taking care of each other. Sick people be looked at, because this is what happened in Paleolithic times. There's numerous archaeological evidence to show that ancient people were not murderous robots. So that's my plans for the next month. If you follow my website, thomassheridanarts.com, and click the blog link, I will update on that. And I want you to thank you for being with me on this journey of the last 2 hours of this radio show, The Velocity of Now, on the Type 1 Radio Network. Thank you to Steve and all the other crew there for doing a wonderful show. Thank you for all the songs and the artists that you play, giving me your tracks to play. Are we featuring more? We're getting good numbers on this show, but I know we can get huge numbers if we can keep it going. And anything you can do to help me in terms of offering me support, buying the books, giving me a donation, all helps towards that. And hopefully we can use this little experiment not just to entertain and to inform, but to also build a better world for all of us going forward. Because ultimately that's what it's all about, creating reality and doing it in the velocity of now, in the moment. Thank you. And as Dave Allen used to say, may your God go with you.